In today's world, intelligence is your ultimate advantage. But what if I told you it's also completely within your control? Well, over my more than 11 years as both a peer-reviewed researcher in the behavioral sciences as well as a successful entrepreneur, I've experienced two worlds: the world of theory and the world of execution. And in this video, I'm gonna show you 3 key methods I've learned to dramatically increase your intelligence, making you stand out from the crowd and opening the door to countless opportunities that otherwise would have been closed off to you. And these 3 methods I'll discuss are: 1, embracing holistic thinking; 2, avoiding group thinking; and 3, activating your prefrontal cortex. Let's start with number 1 here. Back in 2013, when I was solely focused on doing academic research and working hard to publish and lecture on my new value theory, I absolutely loved the academic world. But there was just one little problem. As much as I loved discussing the fine points of human decision-making, organizational behavior, and the history of institutions, I was broke, very broke. Despite all that knowledge, I still couldn't balance my checking account or pay a $400 rent. Fast forward a bit and I found myself in the extreme opposite world: sales and entrepreneurship. You see, my student debt situation had gotten so bad that I started to realize I needed to make money. But all I had was this very narrow set of knowledge that I couldn't possibly apply to running a business. So I had to learn business completely from scratch. However, that's precisely when I discovered the exact opposite problem. Very often, people I started to meet in entrepreneurship tended to trash traditional education and the academic world I had cared so much about. And for a while, I started to adopt this attitude myself. What good was a degree and even an entire book of research I had published, I thought, if at the end of the day I could still barely eat or pay rent? And you know, all my experience in sales seemed to pretty much confirm this attitude. When I was sitting down with a prospect, facts, statistics, and fine details about features rarely mattered. Instead, it was all about building trust, identifying the prospect's underlying emotional needs, and crafting a compelling story. All skills I never learned in school. And so nowadays, is it a wonder you can't scroll for very long on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube without some business bro telling you how useless school is? Well, after all these years of experience in both the theoretical and the practical world, here's the truth. Both the theoretical and the practical worlds are necessary for true success. And the real tragedy is that most of us simply haven't been taught how to combine both. In the book Range by David Epstein explains why focusing narrowly on a small range of knowledge not only limits our intelligence, but also decreases our chances of becoming financially free. So yes, academics do need to get out of pure theory and get their hands dirty in the real world, but the exact opposite is also true. Those of us who want to be entrepreneurs or succeed financially need to study things like history, economics, philosophy, and science. In fact, combining these 2 aspects of intelligence about 5 years ago was ultimately what enabled me to make 5 figures in profit per month in the academic test prep industry. As Epstein demonstrates in depth, to succeed financially or in business in today's world, we need to become generalists. Someone with a broad range of knowledge in multiple fields. And why? Think about it. Do you think the world is stable? Can you predict the future of how industries will evolve? And isn't it helpful to be able to make connections between different fields or areas of knowledge that nobody else would otherwise notice? Well, all of this is the essence of creativity and problem-solving ability, which are key components of intelligence. And honestly, simply your ability to combine knowledge and ideas from different fields will instantly make you stand out from the crowd. The second way to increase your intelligence is controversial, but it's crucial to unlocking your full potential, and that is avoiding group thinking. Now, what the heck is group thinking, and why is it such a threat to your intelligence and overall success in life? Well, thinking of ourselves as part of a group is programmed into our DNA, and it has allowed us to survive because, well, working as a team simply has more advantages than trying to go it alone. The problem? Everyone from companies and their marketing teams, as well as more sinister forces, also know this and just love to take advantage of it. Let's consider the most extreme historical examples: Hitler in Germany, Stalin in Russia, Mao in China, and even Kim Jong-un in North Korea today. How does one person end up holding power over an entire population? Essentially, by taking advantage of these evolutionarily instilled tendencies toward thinking and acting as a group. Dr. Stephen Hassan created what is called the BITE model in social psychology to attempt to explain how modern-day cults form, and understanding this model is crucial to being able to avoid dumb, mindless thinking and ultimately just becoming someone else's pawn. B in the BITE model stands for behavioral control, and the E in this model stands for emotional control. And they both work together closely in our biology to get the process of group thinking started. For instance, at the beginning of Hitler's Germany, the economy was in shambles. Unemployment was at all-time highs, and there wasn't just inflation, but hyperinflation, to the point that money became as valuable as toilet paper. But Hitler, he actually fixed all of that. And so from an evolutionary standpoint, he created a sense of legitimacy in the group by providing food and resources the group needed to survive. From there, the potent drug oxytocin flooded the brains of the general population, instilling in them feelings of love, admiration, and even patriotism. And oxytocin is a drug so powerful, it can override our reasoning. Well, this was the exact tactic the Bolsheviks used in Russia in their call for peace, land, and bread, and that Mao used in China when he told the peasants that the communists would give them food and land. And so when these authoritarian leaders demanded obedience in the form of censorship and violence, this sort of behavioral control was not only tolerated, it was embraced. Where do we see this pattern of thinking taking shape in the world today? Is it inevitable, and how can we protect ourselves from it? Well, it starts with understanding the next two letters in the BITE model, the I and T. Information control and thought control. Once the population submits to behavioral control and sees the leader as a kind of god, pretty much everything else is overlooked. They will never see any flaws in the leader, and if they do even see those flaws, they will feel the need to suppress them in their minds or do some sort of mental gymnastics to dismiss the evil things the leader says or does as irrelevant or maybe even necessary. The only truth is the truth from the group, and external information that contradicts the group is suppressed or ignored. And once again, this was a super useful evolutionary trait when we were hunter-gatherers trying to survive harsh winters, wild animals, and starvation, but in today's world, it's probably one of the most dangerous forms of thinking. And why? Because when we're engaging in group thinking, it all but drowns out any rational thinking. When we're in this state, we are no longer in control. Instead, we are in the hands of a puppet master, pulling our strings and making us feel whatever the puppet master wants us to feel, buy, or do. And I'll admit it, I've been there, and sometimes I fall into this type of thinking. We all do, because we're human. But the way out of it, start getting into the habit of asking yourself, is there any information that exists that could disprove my belief? Or even simply, could I be wrong? And also, instead of simply thinking, the other side is evil, get in the habit of asking yourself, why does the other side believe what they believe? This question is so crucial to ask because what it's gonna do is open up a whole host of potential questions you can ask someone who holds the opposing belief and enter into a conversation with them. And kind, courteous, civil conversations meant for mutual understanding are the worst enemy of authoritarians and even marketers who seek to control your mind and behavior. Because if you're not actively fighting the other side, you're not serving their agenda. And when you're no longer serving their agenda, you've started to become a truly independent thinker. Which leads us directly into the third method of increasing our intelligence, activating your prefrontal cortex. You see, a lot of research in both social psychology and neuroscience has demonstrated that when we're in these emotionally charged states of us versus them mentality, or just any emotionally charged state in general, there's an overwhelming amount of brain activity in what is called our limbic system, which is the emotional center of our brain. But at the same time, during these states, there is very little activity in our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that deals with decision-making, logical reasoning, and organization. And so, in a very real sense, when we're experiencing these states, we're not truly self-determining. We're not truly free. Instead, it's our internal programming, so to speak, that's running the show. But then how do we escape this? How do we break free from our internal programming and put ourselves back in the driver's seat to make decisions and run our lives the way we truly want to, according to our well thought out values? Well, Dr. Albert Bandura, one of the founders of social cognitive theory, has a model of human agency that shows us exactly how to get there. And it all has to do with asking certain key questions at each level to increase our critical thinking and self-awareness. This model is divided into 5 levels. The first level of agency is where many of us operate, unfortunately. At level 1, we're simply motivated and driven to behave in whatever way our immediate desires tell us to behave. Hungry? Eat. Want to drink? Get drunk. Want to have sex? Go for it. If you're still watching this video, this probably isn't you, for the very simple fact that you've probably determined you want to improve yourself and have defined that as a value for yourself. At level 2, this is where we begin to escape the prison and activate our prefrontal cortex. At this level, you come to realize you like certain things, but don't actually like that you like those things. You might drink and get drunk, for instance, but you start to realize you don't actually like that you enjoy that. You might eat junk food and enjoy doing it, but realize you don't like that is something you enjoy. Level 3, however, is the level of values. You no longer simply dislike that you get drunk, you form a value or standard around it, and you actively set out to regulate that behavior. Same thing for eating junk food, smoking, sex, or any other number of behaviors. Now you're no longer simply reacting to your environment or other people or circumstances. You are starting to be the one in the driver's seat of your life. You are starting to stand out among 99% of people. But how exactly do you go from level 2 to level 3? Well, it might be as simple as taking a pause. Recent research has corroborated the idea that simply pausing for 60 seconds after feeling an intense emotion like fear, anger, or self-doubt actually allows the emotion enough time to be processed by the prefrontal cortex. And that's good news, because if you recall, the prefrontal cortex is the decision-making and logical reasoning powerhouse of our brain. By simply taking this pause before reacting, we are priming ourselves for the next step, which is to ask ourselves the simple question, why am I feeling this way? Or, is this truly what I want? Doing this enough on a regular basis, along with activities such as daily journaling, actually helps us become a freer, more self-determining person. One who chooses our path in life, rather than the path choosing us. If you want to learn more of these techniques, feel free to grab my free life orientation guide in the pinned comment below. It'll take you through a whole host of helpful exercises and questions to help you take fuller control of your life. The last level of agency is level 5, what in social cognitive theory is called the self system. At this point, not only have you deliberately formed values around the behaviors you want to have, but you've also actually started consciously prioritizing certain values, organizing them, and regularly revisiting them to question them or reorder them. This is what I would consider a state of total freedom and total self-determination. At this point, you've fully adopted both the holistic thinking we discussed at the beginning of this video, and you've become almost invincible to the group thinking we discussed as well. But how do we get to this level? Well, the truth is, it takes consistent work to get there and stay there, and at any time without continuing to challenge our mind with new ideas, new people, and new experiences. We can easily fall back into being just an average thinker with just an average life. But the great thing, it doesn't matter your background. Intelligence isn't some elitist thing. From the trash truck driver and the farmer to the Nobel laureate and the professor, we can all do better to increase our critical thinking, our creative problem solving, and in the end, not only make our own lives better in terms of health, wealth, and knowledge, but do the same for our entire society at large. If you want to keep leveling up your critical thinking to make a massive impact not only on your own life, but on the lives of countless others, then be sure to watch this next video.